Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. 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 Come, yet again come.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace There is more love somewhere. There is more love everywhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, gathered here in the struggles of the body, 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 gathered
Good morning. Welcome to Grand River Unitarian Congregation's virtual service for May 3rd. I'm going to start this morning with a story. A university professor came to talk to Japanese Zen master Nan-in. The professor explained that he was there to learn about Zen from the master himself. Then he went on to describe his extensive scholarly background in Buddhist studies, his acclaimed studies of Buddhist texts, and his expertise on the Nirvana Sutra. The master listened patiently and prepared tea while the professor talked about his impressive resume. When the water was ready, Nan-in served tea. He poured his visitor's cup full and, still listening intently to the professor's discourse, just kept on pouring. The tea spilled over the cup and into the saucer. Still he poured, and the saucer overflowed, and the tea spilled onto the table, onto the floor, and still he poured. Finally, the professor could not restrain himself any longer. "Stop," he said to the master. "My cup is full. No more will go in." The master stopped pouring at once and replied, "You are like this cup. You are full of ideas about Buddha's way. You come and ask for teaching, but your cup is full. I can't put anything in before I can teach you. You'll have to empty your cup." So come, friends, let us engage in this emptying, in this usefulness of unknowing for this morning. Let us set aside our preconceived notions and assumptions and explore the power of what we do not know. Let this flame be to us a symbol of the wholeness we seek, its brightness dispelling gloom, lighting a path to faith and hope, its glow reminding us of the sacred bonds which link us to all people, its radiance calling us to seek justice, equity, and compassion for all the world. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in harmony with the earth. Thus do we covenant together.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, gathered here in the struggles of the body, 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 gathered here in the struggles of the body,
Gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near.
Hi friends, this is Miss Kimiko Shibata, and today I'm going to read you a book called Lost and Found by Oliver Jeffers. I'm reading this with permission from HarperCollins Children's Books. Lost and Found. Once there was a boy, and one day he found he had a penguin at his door. The the boy didn't know where it had come from, and it began to follow him everywhere. The penguin looked sad, and the boy thought it must be lost. So the boy decided to help the penguin find its way home. He checked in at the Lost and Found office, but no one was missing a penguin. He asked some birds if they knew where penguins came from, but they ignored him. Some birds are like that. The boy asked his duck, but the duck floated away. He didn't know. That night, the boy couldn't sleep for disappointment. He wanted to help the penguin, but he didn't know how. The next morning, he discovered the penguins come from the South Pole. But how could he get there? He ran down to the harbor and asked a big ship to take them to the South Pole. But his voice was much too small to be heard over the ship's horn. So together, he and the penguin would row to the South Pole. The boy took his rowboat out of the cupboard and they tested it for size and strength. They packed everything that they would need, and together they pushed the rowboat out to sea. They rowed south for many days and nights, with the boy telling stories all the way. The penguin listened to everything that the boy said. It's nice to have a friend like that. They floated through good weather and bad. When the leaves were as big as mountains. When the waves were as big as mountains, pardon me. Until they came to the South Pole. The boy was delighted, but the penguin said nothing. Suddenly it looked sad again as the boy helped it out of the boat. There's a little sign that says, "Welcome to the South Pole." The boy said goodbye and floated away. But as he looked back, the penguin looked sadder than ever. It felt strange to be on his own. And the more he thought, the more he realized he was making a big mistake. The penguin wasn't lost. He was just lonely. Quickly, he turned the boat around and headed back to the South Pole as fast as he could. At last, he reached the pole again. But where was the penguin? The boy searched and searched, but he was nowhere to be found. Sadly, the boy set off for home. There was no point telling stories because there was no one to listen, except for the wind and the waves. But then the boy saw something in the water ahead of him. Closer and closer he got until he could see...
It's the penguin!
Do you think it'll be the penguin? You're right! The penguin! Oh, he made a little boat for himself out of his little parapluie, out of his little umbrella. And they have such a beautiful hug there. I love that picture in the story. And so, the boy and his friend went home together, talking of wonderful things all the way.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Kamiko, for reading us that lovely story. Now, I know we haven't sung our GRU song in a little while, so I'm going to add that right here, and we can sing that first before we get into an opening circle, okay?
One, each person is important. Two, be kind in all you do. Three, we help each other learn. Four, and search for what is true. Five, all people have a voice. 6, work for a peaceful world. 7, we care for Earth's lifeboat. And that brings us back to me and GRU. Meh, I'm the lifeboat.
All right, so when I first read that this week's theme was going to be about the unexpected, I immediately thought about a verse from a book by A.A. Milne, who wrote the Winnie the Pooh stories, who wrote a verse called Spring Morning, which is in the book when we were very young. And this is a book in a collection of 4 that I've had since I was very young. So I'm going to start off reading that, okay? Spring morning. Where am I going? I don't quite know. Down to the stream where the kingcups grow. Up on the hill where the pine trees blow. Anywhere, anywhere. I don't know. Where am I going? The clouds sail by. Little ones, baby ones over the sky. Where am I going? The shadows pass. Little ones, baby ones over the grass. If you were a cloud and sailed up there, you'd sail on water as blue as air, and you'd see me here in the fields and say, doesn't the sky look green today? Where am I going? The high rooks call. It's awful fun to be born at all. Where am I going? The ringdoves coo. We do have beautiful things to do. If you were a bird and lived on high, you'd lean on the wind when the wind came by. You'd say to the wind when it took you away, that's where I wanted to go today. Where am I going? I don't quite know. What does it matter where people go? Down to the wood where the bluebells grow. Anywhere, anywhere. I don't know. Sometimes that can be scary, not knowing what's coming next. So my family, for example, my dad especially, is full of planners. We love itineraries, so making schedules. We love to make lists, all of that. Whenever we were traveling or going on canoe trips, my dad had an itinerary, printed, planned out what we were doing every day, down to the hour. My grandpa is also very particular, and he likes everything to be put in place. So he is the only one allowed to do the dishwasher, right? Sometimes we have filled the dishwasher and then he takes it out and puts it back in. He doesn't like when things change a little bit. It's unexpected. It's just a dishwasher. That's kind of what we think, right? But rhythms and patterns are very important to some people. I am also a big fan of rhythms and patterns. My art always has to be put in a particular space. I have to have my pillow done properly, my stuffies, all of that has to be in a particular spot. And I feel a little bit unsettled sometimes when things aren't the way that they usually are or the way that I expect them to be. And that, as I said before, that can be a little bit scary when we don't know what's coming next. And right now there's a lot of change happening around us. Usually we're in school or we're going away for work, and now we don't really know when school is coming back. We don't know when we might see our friends again. Sometimes we don't know what kind of work we're going to have the next day or the day after or next week. Everything is a little bit unexpected, and that's okay. It's giving us an opportunity to learn how to become more resilient. Now, resilient is a big word, but it means learning how we respond to a situation in order to grow, how we work through it. So it doesn't hurt us or make us feel worse, but how we grow and feel better and move past it. For example, finding a lot of comfort or comforting items or experiences can help us be resilient. For me, I find a lot of comfort in items that I had when I was a child. What they do is they remind me of my family. My family is so very important to me, and they help me give me calm and peace. For example, these books, so the one that I read today, and the other 3, I have had for as long as I can remember. These books have always been on my shelf. They're a little bit ratty at the edges, and the case that they're in has pretty worn through, but I have taken them wherever I go. I have moved a few times. I've had different rooms. I've been with different people. I've learned new cities and made new friends, and all of those things can be really difficult, but I've always had little things like this, like the books or a stuffy that I've had since I was a kid that help me feel grounded and that help me get through some of the more difficult times just around me, helping me feel comfortable. And so my question this week for you is, what do you find comfort in, and what helps you to be resilient when things are a little bit different, or when there's more change or things are unexpected happening for you? What brings you comfort? How do you work through those difficult feelings?
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know
what I know. The days blend together. Each morning, shortly after my usual coffee and communion with a good book in my cozy reading chair in my sunny office, I turn to my schedule book to remember the day. Not to remind me of the day, but so I can actually remember the day. What day of the week is it? Is it really May already? This is week 8 of closures. I set up a series of alarms on my phone so that I can keep track of when I am expected in a Zoom meeting or when I promise to make a phone call, the day's commitments. I clean off my desk before I sit down. This usually spare writing room upstairs is now crowded with recording gear. The stand, the chancel cloths, a floor lamp, piles of UU bling that are usually stored at the church surround me. An assortment of chalices and props, books, candles, and reference files line these floors. They're stacked just out of the sight line where I usually set up the camera each week. The space is familiar, yet not. Here's what I know. I hear the now familiar sound of the children across the street playing in their driveway. I hear my partner downstairs packing another set of books. Online book sales are booming. I hear the dogs barking their daily argument in the backyard. I hear the daily broadcasts of news helping me to know how to stay safe as possible, as helpful as possible, as healthy as possible. I hear the hum of some distant domestic engine downstairs. Maybe it's the dishwasher or the dryer or the heater. If this day is like most, the phone will be ringing at some point, or the doorbell will ring for a delivery notice, and I'll have to remember to distinguish that sound from all of the phone alarms that I've set. Here's what I do not know. How much energy I'll have for this day. Whether my loved ones and I will stay healthy and well. What economic hardships lie ahead? When my Wi-Fi might go on the blink again. Which lessons of this time will we all carry forward into the beyond times? I do not know how long this will go on. I do know that my list of what I do not know could go on, and I do know that we will not know all of the answers ever, no matter how many newscasts we consume, how many numbers we crunch, how many opinions we digest. We will not know much until we are through all of this and looking back through the misty lens of history. And even then, we will edit the story that we are living now. And I do know that in a sense, I've been prepared for uncertainty in a unique way, thanks to Unitarian Universalism. Oh yes, this faith has prepared us all. Theologically speaking, Unitarian Universalists have held the corner market on ambiguity, on uncertainty, as a way of being, as a spiritual practice, as it were. I've said for a long time that I believe that Unitarian Universalism is destined to always be a relatively small faith movement, because uncertainty does not really sell. We offer no certainty of belief, no agreement of such. We hold no guarantee of the ultimate eternal life insurance policy held up by other faith movements. As Unitarian Universalists, we cherish our doubts. We offer questions with no expectation of finding a single answer. We agree to disagree, and the measure of success for governance is how well the process went, not usually the ultimate decision made. Our core assumptions tend toward process theology. That is, the idea that we are co-creators of the universe, reality, and history. As Unitarian Universalists, we are meaning makers. We, you and I, choose the path we walk each day, knowing that what we do matters, and that one choice, our personal choice, impacts the interconnected web of existence of which we are all a part. Our lived and shared experiences forge our beliefs. Thus, as long as we are living and breathing and reading and choosing and learning and discussing, those beliefs evolve, are ever changing. Revelation is never sealed. As Unitarian Universalists, then, we do not broker in certainty at all, and rather pride ourselves on that fact. Well, we are certainly being put to the test these days, aren't we? A reading in our hymnal by Robert T. Weston proclaims, "Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the attendant of truth. Doubt is the key to the door of knowledge. It is the servant of discovery. A belief which may not be questioned binds us to error, for there is incompleteness and imperfection in every belief. Doubt is the touchstone of truth. It is an acid which eats away the false. Let no one fear for the truth, that doubt may consume it, for doubt is a testing of belief. The truth stands boldly and unafraid. It is not shaken by the testing. For truth, if it be truth, arises from each testing stronger, more secure. Those that would silence doubt are filled with fear. Their houses are built on shifting sands. But those who fear not doubt and know its use are founded on rock. They shall walk in the light of growing knowledge. The work of their hands shall endure. Therefore, let us not fear doubt, but let us rejoice in its help. It is to the wise as a staff to the blind. Doubt is the attendant of truth." This humanist sentiment, part of a core assumption of Unitarian Universalist understanding of the limits of human knowledge, has a theological precedent that dates back to medieval Christianity in the mystic tradition. I know that may seem far-fetched on the surface, but anytime I think the phrase "cherish your doubts," I am reminded of an ancient book called The Cloud of Unknowing. The text is written as a series of letters to students in the 14th century, 700 years ago, and it reads as though it were written for our times. Delcy Coleman explains, "Some historians have referred to the 14th century as a distant mirror because so many modern issues had counterparts in that time. Today we ponder the possibility of chemical or thermonuclear warfare that could wipe out entire populations. During the 14th century, the onset of the Little Ice Age contributed to crop failure and famine, and the Black Death was a plague that wiped out a third of Europe's population. Today, we have increasing concern over institutional failures. During that time, there were social upheavals as well. Power feuds between the church and state led to crisis in both. Popes and kings were at odds over taxes and control, and everything, I mean everything, was for sale. The author of The Cloud of Unknowing does not offer pretty assurances or a definitive path for fulfillment, but instead counsels us toward humility about our human limitations, and actually asks us to try to forget what we think we know. When we have boxed in our minds with what we believe is inalterably true, then there's no room for evolution, for transformation, for revelation or growth. It's like that old Zen parable of the teacup overflowing. In the Christian tradition of the author of The Cloud of Unknowing, that fulfillment would be the goal of union with the capital letter G, God, to be filled with God's love. For Unitarian Universalists, it could mean that or many other different aspects of enacting and embodying love. Love as in the doctrine of this church. The medieval mystic urged us to abandon what we think we know, not just the pointless worries and long-lived hurts, but also the privileged assumptions we labor under, and leave those under a cloud of forgetting. He writes this: first of all, you want to know what kind of thoughts they are, pretending to be so helpful. To this I say, there are the clear ideas of natural intelligence which reason conceives in your mind. As to whether they are good or evil, I must insist that they are always good in themselves, for your intelligence is a reflection of the divine intelligence. But what you do with them may be either good or evil. Certainly they are good when they help you understand something, but they become evil when, inflated by pride and egoism and worry, they corrupt your mind. So then, take up the toil of the contemplative work with wholehearted generosity. Beat upon this high cloud of unknowing. This is hard work, the mystic warns, in which we must employ all 5 of our faculties, which he names as mind, reason, willpower, along with imagination and feelings. Mind, reason, willpower, imagination, and feelings, all 5. He writes, for I will tell you frankly, too, that anyone who really desires to be a contemplative will know the pain of arduous toil. Why is this work so burdensome? The labor, of course, is in the unrelenting struggle to banish the countless distracting thoughts that plague our minds and to restrain them beneath that cloud of forgetting which I spoke of earlier. This is the suffering. It is a struggle, this awakening of love in which you alone can do. But persevere in doing your part, and I promise you that love will not fail. The mystic prescribes these 3 forms of meditation or prayer: reading, the use of language and imagination, and the use of silence or quiet. Such a practice of resting in dark awareness requires both humility and patience, and courage to trust the process and let the future unfold as it will, understanding we cannot control it. The mystic says, with an empty mind and an open heart, let yourself be naked before grace. If you want to find your soul, look at what you love. As Unitarian Universalists, we can take comfort in this ancient source of wisdom that reminds us that though this time is unique to us, it is not unique in the history of humanity. This too shall pass. For now, it is ours to rest in the uncertainty with as much grace as we can muster. After all, if the opposite of orthodox is paradox, and we Unitarian Universalists are indeed a people of paradox, then we can stay informed, but also park our judgment and speculations, open to many possibilities of the beyond time. May we do so with patience, with humility, with courage, and above all, with love. May it be so.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of all surround you. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the peace everywhere. Go now in peace, go now in peace. Go now in peace, go now in peace, where the love of all surround you. Everywhere, everywhere, where the love of all surround you. Go now in peace, go now in peace, where the love of all surround you. Go now in peace, go now in peace, where the love of all surround you. Every make, everywhere you may go.
Today's meditation was written by Father Richard Hendricks, and it was sent to me by John O'Connor. Thank you, John. This is called Lockdown. Yes, there is fear. Yes, there is isolation. Yes, there is panic buying. Yes, there is sickness. Yes, there is even death. But they say that in Wuhan, after so many years of noise, you can hear the birds again. They say that after just a few weeks of quiet, the sky is no longer thick with fumes, but blue and gray and clear. They say that in the streets of Assisi, people are singing to each other across the empty squares, keeping their windows open so that those who are alone may hear the sounds of family around them. They say that a hotel in the west of Ireland is offering free meals and delivery to the housebound. Today, a young woman I know is busy spreading flyers with her number through the neighborhood so that elders may have someone to call on. Today, churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples are preparing to welcome and shelter the homeless, the sick, the weary. All over the world, people are slowing down and reflecting. All over the world, people are looking at their neighbors in a new way. All over the world, people are waking up to a new reality, to how big we really are, to how little control we really have, to what really matters, to love. So we pray and we remember that, yes, there is fear, but there does not have to be hate. Yes, there is isolation, but there does not have to be loneliness. Yes, there is panic buying, but there does not have to be meanness. Yes, there is sickness, but there does not have to be disease of the soul. Yes, there is even death, but there can always be a rebirth of love. Wake to the choices you make as to how to live now. Today, breathe. Listen. Behind the factory noises of your panic, the birds are singing again. The sky is clearing. Spring is coming. And we are always encompassed by love. Open the windows of your soul, and though you may not be able to touch across the empty square, sing.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inspires us, we'll lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give
In closing, I'll leave you with a quote from the author of The Cloud of Unknowing. This is from a text called The Book of Privy Counseling, and it's advice that would normally go against the grain of how Unitarian Universalists think, but it may be our best hope in these times when there is so much we cannot know. The mystic says, "And so I urge you, go after experience rather than knowledge. On account of pride, knowledge may often deceive you, but this gentle, loving affection, love, will not deceive you. Knowledge tends to breed conceit, but love builds. Knowledge is full of labor, but love, full of rest." Let us carry the flame, friends, and let the people say, Amen.
Carry the flame of peace and love till we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Then we shall see a world of light and a world of joy. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.
Let the people say